Everyone, Rachael Jayne Groover here, and today I'm with Amara Hamilton, who, if you do not know, she clears everything of mine. She clears my house, my office, myself, and the most important thing ever, my husband. No, I'm kidding. We the rooms at our hotels that we go in, and we're having a conversation today about the importance of clearing your space, some of the things that you need to think about. It is a real phenomenon that is going on that affects everything that's happening in the space. And I know, Amara, welcome first. Hello.
Hi, thank you so much,
You're in
Virginia.
your gorgeous space. I've been able to visit Amara's home, and gosh, you can feel it when you walk in. And hopefully, people say that now to our home and our offices that they definitely say that at the events, don't they? I mean, you can feel the energy, and that is a lot to do with this woman. You've been doing this for many, many decades. Can you just give us a little quick story of how you got into the world of clearing and feng shui and the spiritual work that you're doing in amongst that?
Yeah, I came to it after I got divorced for the second time and felt, I was ready for a big shift in my life. And so I was looking for something different. I'd been an occupational therapist. And so I've always kind of looked for a practical approach to living better. And
Yes.
so through some coincidences, I came across Feng Shui and went to a workshop and really connected with the work because I have a good spatial sense, and it was just a way of doing something, sort of using that whole part of me that has a sense of that. But what I didn't know was that I have actually, there's a learnable part of how to encounter the space. And so I studied Feng Shui, and then shortly into that, I met an energy clearing teacher who uses a little bit of a different approach, a different system that he created himself, where the focus is a little bit more on, what energetic patterns are there from the earth, from people, all the electromagnetic fog that we're enveloped in. And so I kind of put that together, and over time sort of created my own combination of clearing the space, clearing people, using some principles of Feng Shui. And so I do, depending on what is really asked for within the space and within the people, I mix it
Yes.
all up, and it's, becomes more and more powerful really over
Yeah.
the years.
Well, it works. The first time we had a conversation about it was in our old home, and you took me into my office, and I was debating about whether to move my desk. It just didn't feel right, and all of that. And you got me to sit down at my desk and just sort of feel my goals, feel like, where do I want to go? Where do I want to be? What's going on? And yeah, I just sat there going, I don't feel like I can do it from this place. And you shared some different positions, but it wasn't just the positioning and the feng shui. It was the clearing. You let us know that the house was very yin, so there was a lot of not completing things. I had, snuck a few little things in there, like my husband wasn't completing things. He was starting big projects, and they just weren't coming to that. You cleared his office. It changed things for him very, very quickly. And then we moved into our own office, and you did the same thing here. And we've just been having clearing on call essentially for the last 4 years or something almost now. So, just sort of give us a sense from your standpoint of why is clearing important? Because I think most people watching this today are not, they don't have an energy clearer on standby for their space. They might on them, like they're doing energetic work, but they don't have it on the space. Why is clearing your space so important?
Yeah, it's often overlooked, but what we really need to look at is, yes, we are our own person and we bring a particular energetic pattern into the space, but the space is also holding energetic patterns, and it it's holding patterns that come from the earth, could be fault lines, underground water, magnetic fields. They're just naturally occurring. And then you have people energy. So in a house, of course, if you have layers of people living there, they will leave their imprints there. And then electromagnetic. So if you live close to any power lines or, any intensity of that invisible
Yes.
electric energy,
Yes.
it all sort of comes together, and your house actually has a personality, or your office space or any space. And you know that it has, because if you go and buy a place or you rent a place, you go into a space and you say, oh, I like it here, or I don't like it. I just don't even have to go and check it out.
Yes.
So we have sort of a resonance, just like we do with people. Like we go to a party and we may be drawn to approach certain people, and then other people we sort of really are not interested in. And so a house or any physical space has the same feel to it. And the patterns that are established, this personality that's created in a space, will sit there. And a good example to see how it can influence is I always like to think about restaurants. So I live in Calgary, and so we have restaurants that have been there for 20, 30 years, and other ones that change over every year or two. And so the energy of bankruptcy starts to be in there and gets kind of pushed on because people are
Got
not
it.
aware that that pattern is in there.
Got it.
So we don't know, like there are houses I know that come up for sale because people get divorced in them all the time, right? Like it's like you create a certain pattern and you're attracted to a place from your own energetic pattern. But I also feel that we're attracted into a place often to work on something. So, if I have a restaurant and I have something to work out in terms of my management of the restaurant or my level of trust in myself that I can do this, then the challenge may present itself that the restaurant is not going that well. And so I can become conscious and work with that, or I can be unconscious and, run the restaurant into bankruptcy. So people can see that, and the outcome really for us personally is to look at, so if I'm in my home or in my office, is it organized? Is it functional? Is it sustaining what I want to do? Because what we tend to do is when things don't go well, we blame ourselves.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is we don't always need to blame ourselves. Some of the challenges are inherent in the space. And when we shift the space.
And that can go against a lot of the spiritual understanding. You've got to take responsibility for what you're creating, and you've got to do that. And to a degree, that's true in what you're saying, because you're choosing the space, you're coming in contact with that. How does it work? I mean, how does the clearing work if there's an energetic pattern in the space that's been there for a long time? How can Amara just go in and go doing, out you go?
Yeah, so it takes a sense of humor. Basically, a space is like a person. If I have a conversation with you and I feel that I'm heard in my sharing of the conversation and that you really hear me, then the conversation will complete for me, and I will have less busyness in my head trying to figure out I should have said this or I should have that. It's complete, and so I can relax and finish the topic. And it's the same with the physical space. Basically, I go in there and I notice that there's a pattern that is a challenge, and holding space for it. So I see it like I'm having sort of this half circle, that I'm holding space for. There's movement possible in the front, but I'm recognizing what is going on. I have no judgment about it, and I'm allowing it to be whatever it is. And so by putting the attention on it and being present to it, starts to shift the pattern. So it is very simple, and that is the difficulty, to keep it that simple because, I wouldn't do it for myself because I get my own habits, patterns, thoughts in there, or my preferences of my outcome.
Yes.
So, but if I work with somebody else, of course, I don't need to have that, right? I can say it doesn't really matter. So I can keep my attention on this
Yes.
bigger allowing.
Yes. Yes. Got it. Got it. Yeah, I mean, I remember when we were in Calgary that time, and I walked into one of the ballrooms, and the little tiny, not ballroom, but tiny like space there. It was like the lights were out. It was so dark. It was sort of dingy. It didn't make sense actually, that room compared to the rest of the hotel because it was a nice hotel. And I just walked in and was like, oh, I just don't like the energy here. And this was many years ago. And I don't know if I really had put so much attention on the energy of the space until that day. And he said, yeah, don't worry about it. I'll just do some clearing. And when I came back about 15, 20 minutes later, it looked like the lights had gone on. Like you just had the lights off and then the lights were turned on. And there was no lights turned on. There
Yeah.
was sunshine coming through the windows, which had been there prior.
Yeah.
Um, and so you can feel it. I know we've talked about it a lot with our events being cleared and at different times, and you come in and you do your magic. That it's not that we're necessarily putting stuff into the space as much as pulling apart or allowing freedom or space to be there
Yeah.
than necessarily intention. Have I got that right? Or are you actually putting an intention to? I know that's part of Feng Shui and having that.
Yeah.
Was the clearing part intention, or is that just,
No, yeah. The clearing part, my only intention is to find what is a challenge in this space. That is sort of my intention, but I don't put anything in. The shift happens just by putting my attention on whatever may be the challenge. And yes, in a way, of course, I have the back intention because I'm going there to clear the space. So I can't quite unhook from that. But when I'm within the process, it's different. And so good examples like what you said about the space being dark. So we have yin energy and yang energy in a space, and we want a certain amount of yin energy, about 40-45%, which helps us to rest and relax, but we want a little bit more of the yang to get us going and moving.
yes,
So most physical spaces have too much yin energy. And so what the yin energy does when it goes over 55-60%, some places have 80-90%, it starts to feel like there's this cloud in the room and everything sort of gets darker, a little tighter, slower, and there's usually more clutter in there. People move more slowly. It's more difficult to make a decision, to get going on something. And so when you shift that pattern, it actually starts to brighten up. And, when you thought the lights went on, that's literally, what the feeling can be like. And it's a little bit more spacious in there. And what we tend to do when things are not going well, particularly at work and when we have an office at home, where we don't change location, but we're influenced by the whole house. And if we have a lot of yin energy, when we work from home and we send an email out, or we create a video, or we do all our marketing things, when you have a lot of yin energy, it actually transmits through your computer or your communication. And so people will not take you up on
yes,
your offers because it just sort of floats by and it's like, oh, I can't be bothered, right? It just
yes,
moves by and there's no feeling of, yeah, let's go and do that, right? It's the
yes,
same clearing a house
yes,
for sale, yeah, right? If it
yes,
has a lot of that yin energy, people will just drive by or they find it on the internet and they won't even pay attention to it because that type of energy is like a fog,
yeah,
really.
yeah. Yeah, I'm intrigued because we're looking at different properties right now. I know you helped a friend, was it yesterday, that couldn't sell the house? When you so I walked into this place a couple months ago, and it was a possible retreat center that we could use, like it's a existing one. And I couldn't even get past the first room because the energy in there was so not what I was used to. And so I'm wondering how much actually can be done. like like and especially if it's not your own space. So you've got your own space, which then allows me and this team who have got beautiful, wonderful energy, at least most of the time, or in this place
Mhm.
that amplifies and it grows, I'm sure, because we're in a clear space thanks to Amara, and then we're adding our happies and our gratitudes and all of that. But if I go into somebody else's space and you clear all of that, and it's the same people in there, how much could clearing actually do if it was the same people running that experience or running
Yeah,
that retreat center?
yeah. So, so what happens, particularly, if you think about a retreat center, a hotel, a hospital, like where a lot of people come through, is so we as people coming into the space react to the pattern. So let's say you have a one fault line in there or something, which is a stress line, and then processes happen, right? Like if you have a retreat center, people get emotionally very involved and release. And so we have like a little trail, we leave a little energetic trail behind us all day. And, it's fine, fine, fine. And, oh, now I got angry. Boom, there's sort of a bigger, plop of energy there. So then somebody else comes in and they walk through that bigger piece of energy and they go like, oh, whatever, maybe a different angle, but they get stimulated, right? And so
Uh,
over time you layer the energetic patterns. So if I go into somebody else's house and when I clear the earth energies will still be there, but they will be kind of calmed down, moderated. So I can't really move a fault line because the earth inherently has created that for itself to release its own energetic pattern. But people energy can be completely cleared. So every room in the house will be different depending on who's been there, what's happened there, whatever. And so people energy can completely go. And electromagnetic energy can be a bit more contained. So if you have big power lines outside, you can actually create sort of a more supportive barrier to not have it come in. So what happens is when the space relaxes and kind of comes back into a more neutral feel, then it allows those people or you to bring in something new because all of a sudden there's room. So for example, I find often that, people make New Year's resolutions, right? And so they're like all keen to go, okay, January 1st, let's get started on, I'm going to do this thing. And then, 2 or 3 weeks later, it sort of slows down. And then a month later, gone. It's
yes.
because they set a new intention. And sometimes with health, it's important, right? Like you find you have a health issue, you go to the doctor, new
Yes.
regimen. But what you do is you have an intention in your head, and a willingness, but then you come into the space and it pushes you back into what it has been,
Yes.
right? Because
Yes.
it is looking for its own kind of status quo.
Yes.
I like it the way, it's sort of a little bit like the ego, right? I like it the way it's always been. And so it then influences you as a person to kind of move back into the old pattern.
Yes. Well,
But if
like
you,
the ego being, that gravitational pull
yeah,
back to this is how I'm meant to be after great experiences of expansion. Is that what's happening in the
yeah,
space? It's like, yeah, I'm there. And then it's starting to pull back into its
exactly.
normal
Yeah,
way.
yeah. And then if you don't have that, if you've cleared the space, then it's a great time to start making some shifts in your personal life because all of a sudden there's room,
Yeah.
right? There's not an expectation of the space for you to be in some, behave in a certain way or do certain things, but all of a sudden it's like an invitation to say, yeah, let's go and play here and experiment and see how we can show up differently, right? And then you can, in a way, keep up leveling, clearing the space as you up level yourself, and so it sort of works together in both directions. So the people, if you have that resort center, if the space is cleared, they may come in with some new ideas.
Yes.
Right? Or some things that they may have considered for a long time, or just
Yes.
something new pops in. And so then that starts shifting where that place goes.
Got it. I'm hoping this conversation with everyone is stirring up a lot of questions. I know it's stirring up a lot for me, and I've been with and around Amara for so long. Before we go to final questions, just let everyone know how they can get a clearing session with you or how they can find out more about it. I tell all of our clients to work with you. Many of them have done clearing sessions on themselves, on their homes, definitely on their offices, because if we're trying to tell them, do this in your business or do this in your personal life or do this in your relationship, and there's energetic patterns that they continue literally to keep walking into, it makes it so much more difficult than when they're working with you and can get some things cleared and all of that. So definitely reach out to Amara. She's about to share, and I'll pop it down below also so you can read it below. And feel free to share this video with anybody that you think might be up against an energetic pattern in their space, whether it is they're trying to sell their home, but often it's a relationship issue, a money issue, things like that. How can we get a clearing session?
Yeah, so go to my website, www.amara.ca. I live in Canada, so I have a CA. And you can just go to my main website or /programs, and you can sign up there for a free discovery session with me. And what we will do during that time is sit together and find out what your challenges are, and I will offer you a resource, and we'll see if we can fit to work together.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So if they have physical clearing, like they've got their office done and their bedroom done and the most important rooms in the house done, are they going to need ongoing personal clearing? Like, because that personal clearing is just going to keep dumping stuff into their space, or how does that work?
Yeah. So I usually like to start with the space, because as I said before, then it, is like a bigger, creates a sort of a new set of possibilities, and then clear the person. So clearing can be, to a particular topic. It can be just being together and not even knowing. So often I don't go into a lot of detail. So it's not like therapy or whatever. I don't need to know all the stories and details. Often it's the less is better. But it's good to sort of get sort of a baseline going, then seeing what happens. And any, as we all know, new level, new devil, as you always say, right? But it's we sort of clear on one level, and then we move up into another level, and other things may appear, or the same issue comes from a different perspective.
Yes.
And so in a way, it's to kind of create a rhythm in that is good, like to do your house a couple times a year. Work on yourself ever so often, and just to allow yourself to hold at that new level, and to support yourself in sustaining that and not get dragged down.
Beautiful.
To whatever you.
Well, I would say, yeah, wherever you keep going. So, I would say to everyone watching, there's no harm in getting your home done once, or even just your office done once, because my opinion is you're gonna notice it. You're gonna notice it pretty quickly, and then once you've had one part of your home or your office done, then see if that's worthwhile to do more things or continuous clearing. Just in the few first times that I worked with Amara, I'm like, I've got to do this all of the time, because I got it that it was me going into a space. And if you've been to other people's houses, hotels, some they look the same, but one feels amazing and one doesn't feel amazing. it's really something to be with, and to not beat yourself up so much about why you're not able to complete things or get things moving, or certain things keep happening. And Amara is your gal for sure. She is world class at this. She really knows her stuff. Thank you so much, Amara, for being here and having our interview. I'll post all the details below so they can get a hold of you. Any final words?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for having me here and giving me this opportunity. And I'm looking forward to connect with those who are interested. Thank you so very much.
Just totally even worth talking to her and just hanging out. Awesome. Okay, thanks everyone. Thanks,
Thank
Amara.
you.
Take care.
Bye.